Chemtrails? What are chemtrails?
Chemical trails, Daddy, and they're very bad.
I look up to the sky. Can you tell me why? Can you tell me why? I don't wanna feel.
Hello, this is Dane Wigington with GeoEngineering Watch Radio for the week of January 10th, 2015. Russ Tanner with us today. As always, wouldn't have a show without Russ. And Russ is struggling, as many people are, with the fallout from the constant aerosol spraying that most have noticed is worse now than ever before, as if it hasn't been bad enough for long enough. But the all-out assault is worse than ever. I'm hearing from people all over the globe about this. At least I'm hearing from those that are awake, when we have much of society, much of the rest of society, and really they're in what I would describe as a religion of denial. And that is a form of religious view in a sense. No offense meant toward any organized institutional belief systems, but in this case, it's a huge problem. And how many people do all of us know? I hear from people all the time about their families, their friends, who resist any sort of news, any sort of data. They already have their conclusions. They don't want facts. They don't want information. And that's a form of religion. That's a belief system that says, my government would never do this to me. It's just too scary. I can't face it. I won't face it. Don't bother me with reality. And that's what's brought us to this place. That's what's brought us to this dark corner where everybody's standing on the deck of the Titanic, ankle deep in water, pretending it isn't so. But there'll be no hiding from this much longer. Absolutely no hiding. In the radically engineered events like the cool down that has happened to bring in in 2014, bring in 2015, it's not going to last much longer. Wait and see. Wait and see. You can't force the weather to this degree for very long. This is an all-out assault. And we're hearing from people, I just shared with Russ off the air, one in Denver who is seeing, I think he noted a 30-degree temperature drop as he descends several hundred feet in elevation from the hill above Denver down into Denver. And that's indicative of exactly what we've described over and over and over. What the climate engineers can do by chemically nucleating the moisture in the clouds, creating an endothermic reaction, chemical cool down, it creates a cold, dense layer of air in the ground. Creates a lot of headlines. It's exactly what the media is looking for. And anybody who watches the Weather Channel, it is absolutely appalling, the theater that's there. And I hope we all work toward exposing that kind of lying for the power structure. We all need to do that. But the degree of theater we see in the Weather Channel, the degree of orchestration in the stock market right now, the degree of orchestration of petroleum prices right now toward the downside to help artificially stimulate a dying economy, a dying industrialized civilization, and that's exactly what's happening. And we see the false flag event in France that seems to have a strong odor to it in many aspects, that they note how professional these terrorists are, and certainly they're terrorists. I mean, when people are killing other people, they're terrorists. There's no other word for it, whoever these people are. But if these people are professional, why would they drop their identification in the street, which some reports seem to indicate they did? It's a bit like the 9/11 attacks when everything was obliterated, but yet they find passports of some of the terrorists in the street intact. That should really send up a big red flag for a lot of people. The amount of orchestration going on with public opinion right now is immense. It's going to get worse fast, as many aspects can't be hidden any longer. I've said that for a couple years or more. I mean, on various issues that they can't. I felt they couldn't hide much longer, and I stand by that. We now have die-off on the U.S. West Coast that's making headlines. Marine life is floating up dead everywhere on the West Coast. I've seen that firsthand myself. So to hide these sorts of things, To hide the headlines that people should be looking at, they create other headlines, distractions, false flags, smoke screens, if you will. And a huge smoke screen we see, again, back to the climate, this big engineered cool down that has everybody's attention. Don't see anybody saying anything, really, about the fact that 2014 was statistically the hottest year ever recorded on the planet. I know people don't believe it because they live in the East Coast, but that's what it looks like away from their own windowsill. If we look around the world, we see places with immensely warm temperatures, ocean temperatures off the charts, and again, the power structure has changed their trajectory. Yes, at one point they were pushing the media to disclose the warming so they could institute all sorts of carbon credits and so forth, which are nothing but scams, nothing but another way to control the population. But it doesn't mean the damage isn't real. And now the damage is so immense that they are simply trying to hide it as long as possible, trying to pacify the population as long as possible, trying to distract the population as much as possible. So when we see media like, I noted on MSNBC the other day that they have Reverend Al Sharpton, that's the news commentator. How ridiculous is that? Al Sharpton, I don't have the words for that guy. You know, why don't we put Jim Baker on? It's in the same category. I don't care what color he is. But Al Sharpton is just simply the same kind of person that shows up at all the protests to fan the flames, just like Jesse Jackson. And again, why don't we put Jim Baker or Jimmy Swaggart on? I mean, that's since when are people like that newscasters? So they try to create race division, and they do a good job of it. People buy it, distracts them, and that's the goal. And in the meantime, we have again the signs of the engineered nature of the weather, of the cool downs, are everywhere. The ice balls are back in Lake Michigan with 40-degree water. And of course, we have a lot of agencies trying to explain this away. They are paid to explain this away. In fact, they have a little piece of paper from the establishment that says they're a quote-unquote expert. We're not to question them. Just like the physician who injects our children with poison in the form of a vaccine. We're not to question that person because they're a quote-unquote expert. Well, the quote-unquote experts have pushed us to the point of near certain human extinction in the short term. That's what the experts have done to us. The experts that have encouraged us and designed and propelled us to build massive cities at sea level. Now, how smart is that? Knowing that there's enough ice in the cryosphere to raise sea levels, a total of 240 feet, 197 feet from Antarctica, 21 to 24 feet from Greenland, depending on the study, another 10 to 15 feet from the rest of the Earth's glaciers. It's about 240 feet. Knowing that had to happen at some point, it's happening now, why would you build the civilization's largest cities at sea level? What kind of an expert does it take to do that? Again, we don't have a lot of sanity here, and the walls are closing in quickly, but what's in our favor is this. The seeds we plant now will have to sprout soon. People cannot keep their heads in the sand any longer, or much longer, I should say. So for all those people, and I hear from a lot of them, and I feel for them because I've gone through so much of the same over the last 12 years in this fight, that their families alienating them, their friends. But to those people, I would say stand strong. You are the sane ones. We have studies to prove that those who question are obviously the most sane. Those who dogmatically recite the official narrative have mental issues, literally. Their programming is not a sign of mental health. In fact, we have Scott Peck, internationally recognized psychologist, wrote the book, The Road Less Traveled, stated the hallmark of a healthy mind is an unswavering willingness to look at the truth and not turn away, no matter how bitter that truth is. And if that's where you're standing, you're in the right place. You're absolutely in the right place. Do not let anybody's resistance deter you. Plant the seed and walk on. And we even have people unfortunately, who claim to be fighting climate engineering that are not acknowledging the engineered nature of the cool downs. That's unfortunate, and it's not helpful to the credibility of our cause, and I hope everybody starts to look at solid data and coming to solid conclusions. These cool downs are absolutely engineered. In fact, we have Winter Storm Hector moving into Texas right now, a winter storm coming straight out of mainland Mexico. Since when? Just like all the other winter storms that have moisture generated right out of the Gulf of Mexico. Since when? Since they can ice nucleate. They can chemically ice nucleate and create snow pretty much wherever they want. Just like Gaza right now. It just got hammered with a brutal snowstorm. Places that have never seen snow before are getting snow because they can chemically nucleate at unbelievably high temperatures and create a cool layer at the ground. That's exactly what they're doing. We have the patents for it going back to 1950. The oldest patent I have found on chemical ice nucleation goes back to 1950. How long have they been at this, and how good are they at it? We know they can. We know they are. Anybody who Googles Chinese scientists create artificial snowstorm, Google it, search it. The Chinese government openly admitted they were doing this until they did $1 billion worth of damage to Beijing. This stuff's not secret for anybody who does any investigation whatsoever. So it's up to all of us to constantly try to clear our lenses, look at data, stand on solid facts if we want to gain credibility and expose this issue. And right now, the extreme weather fluctuations are going to continue to spiral so much out of control that even people who want to deny what you're telling them are going to be faced with the fact that they were horrifically wrong. So we should all stand in confidence in this regard. Our health is certainly being assaulted day in, day out. I want to have Russ tell us what he's going through here in a moment. So if we are to prioritize, I would say this: to do everything you can to remain healthy, cognitively functional, and remain in the fight. Remain in the fight to the degree you can. Everybody has responsibilities, I understand that, but to the degree you can, this must be our priority, to continue to start spot fires, and so many activists are doing such a great job at this right now. I think of Steve Chamberlain in Alaska and all he's done, Greg Palin and all he's done with the signs, Frank and Terry Reps, and these signs they've helped put up, all Russ has done with his site. We have so many people that are doing so much good. Wanda Allen, Corey Gunnels, people who are truly committed to this fight. Lana Javant, Rebel Siren, another activist that's doing tremendous good. There's so many activists that are really pulling together right now, and we need that. If we march together and stay in coherent fashion right now and continue to start spot fires, we are very close to changes on the ground that will make the climate engineering, I believe, impossible to hide. We can expect some very dangerous things from the power structure soon, I would imagine, because they are being backed into a corner as the curtain is pulled back. Our health is waning for many of us. Russ, I know you're going through a lot of trouble. I want to go into discussion, Russ. If you can, first, before you comment, if you can give the call-in number right now, I want to get a dialogue going. Let's see what's happening with everybody around the country. And then, Russ, tell us how you're feeling and how constant the aggravation is from the spraying for you.
Sure, absolutely. For those who want to call in, the call-in number is 718-717-8296. That's 718-717-8296. Just call in and then keep your phone nice and quiet, and we'll call on you when we're ready for you. The kind of things that I'm going through, I'm one of the lucky ones who has inflammation as a response to the spraying. I am also one who can actually taste it in the air. A lot of people reported.
Russ, you've had that inflammation for a long time, correct? I mean, I know you're extremely sensitive, but even people who weren't sensitive are now feeling that inflammation. I mean, because eventually it starts to happen in all of us. But you felt it for how long? When did you first start to feel that?
I felt it from the very beginning. It was November 2005. I'll never forget the day. I was going to have an employee meeting I had 3 employees for my small business at the time, and we were going to have a meeting, and we got doused. And this was the first day that I experienced this. I got a headache, joint pain, muscle pain, and I could taste the salty metallic taste in the air. And it was so bad I couldn't function. I was in great pain. And eventually, 3 years later, I ended up moving from Jamestown, New York, which is where I first experienced this in 2005. And it was extreme. It was just horrible, and I couldn't function from it.
I want to say a lot of people have trouble believing, and I don't know why they have trouble, but they have trouble believing that someone could be that reactive to it. But just because one person can get bit by a bee or 10 bees and not have a problem, another person gets bit by a bee and they're in the hospital. We're all different, and some of us are much more sensitive than others. So, I see complete validity to what you're saying, and as I shared in the previous show, the smell was bad enough here where a lot of our residents smelled it recently, that burnt sort of smell. If we have, Russ, when you continue in 1 second, I want to mention anybody listening, though. If anybody listening has spent any time watching the Weather Channel, please call in. I want to hear what you think. Go ahead, Russ.
Yeah, absolutely. What people need to realize is you become more and more toxic. And the reason why some people suffer from environmental illnesses and other people don't is because some people detoxify better than others. And there's a great difference between those who detoxify and those who don't. And in fact, Dr. Boyd Haley uncovered the fact that those who don't detoxify mercury are the ones, 3 out of 4 of those who get ADD, ADHD, and autism are children who do not detoxify heavy metals efficiently. And that inability to detoxify is tied to high testosterone, which inhibits the production of glutathione in the body. And glutathione is a substance that helps people get rid of mercury and other heavy metals. So there's a vast difference between these people who feel environmental illnesses, who have inflammatory reactions to these things, and those who don't. So just because people don't think you're not getting doused with it, don't think you're in the clear, because it's eventually going to start happening to you as you become more and more toxic. You just may be a better detoxifier, but it's still building up in your system, so it's just a matter of...
Once it hits critical, the breakdown can occur very rapidly. That's what people don't understand. They think it's a very linear equation. It's not. Once your body's had enough, it's had enough.
That's exactly true. It can come on very quickly, and this is why people with amalgam fillings, for instance, who have this chronic 3 to 17 micrograms per filling per day of mercury exposure, they seem to do pretty fine through life, depending on who they are, for 20 or 30 years, and then all of a sudden, within 5 years, their health just collapses, and that's exactly what happened to me, because like you just said, they hit one of those thresholds.
Now, what you can do, I can only speak from my own experience on that. I've had 6 mercury fillings since I was 16. A dentist that cashed in on me. I have strong teeth, and that was I was supposedly had 2 cavities left, which I never got filled, and that was nearly 4 decades ago. So obviously somebody was lying. So I have these 6 fillings. I still have them. I take a lot of calcium, about 3 grams a day, and about the same of a quality vitamin C. I think that can help. And again, as Russ stated, everybody's different. Everybody's system is different. But if your body has enough of the essential nutrients, and vitamin C and calcium are both good chelators as well, and if your body has what it needs to do the repairs it needs to do on a daily basis, 98% of your body, cell for cell, is replaced every year. That takes a lot of nutrients. So if you have enough of the essential nutrients, your body is less prone to substitute these very, very unhealthful elements in their stead. So make sure you get enough nutrition. It's essential, absolutely essential to keeping that toxicity from building up.
Absolutely. Two of the best chelators for aluminum. Vitamin C, like you said, is a great chelator for aluminum. Also, malic acid. Malic acid is considered by many as the best over-the-counter aluminum chelator and is effective as any pharmaceutical chelator.
A lot of water, a lot of good, clean water, and plenty of sweating helps as well. I make sure in the room where I work out that it's not cool. I want to sweat. That's one of our body's ways of cleaning out. So a good, healthy sweat with plenty of clean water to back it up. Also very helpful. Very simple things can be done. And,
Absolutely.
Yeah, go ahead, Russ.
I was just going to say absolutely, and when you're ready, we do have a panel full of callers ready. But yeah, water sweating is, in fact, sweating is one of the main modalities for removing heavy metals from the body from miners.
It is. So just the simple, basic methods. Before we take a caller, I want to read a few of the Weather Channel theatrical storms we've had. And this is part of the theater, part of creating the impression of this, Ice Age sort of U.S. when, the fluctuations are happening to a degree that can scarcely be imagined. But they are doing their best to create theater. Winter Storm Astro, Bozeman, Cato, Damon, Frona, Gorgon, Hector, Marcus, Neptune, Octavia, Pandora. I mean, this is all theater. Remus, Sparta, Venus. It's an absolute joke. These are Winter Channel's named storms. And anyway, I hope somebody listening has been watching Weather Channel. I make myself watch it just to see the degree of theater these clowns are putting out. Anyway, go ahead and let's grab a call, Russ, and caller, tell us what's on your mind.
Absolutely. Caller with the phone number that ends in 09. Who are we speaking with?
Hello?
Hi, who is this?
Hello, can you hear me? Hi, this is Bija from Southern Arizona.
Hi, Bija, how are you?
It's so great to be on with you guys. Fine, thanks. It's just an awesome thing to be on with you guys, and you're all my heroes, so thank you so much.
Good to have you.
Yeah, I wanted to call today because I had a few questions about things that might, that might kind of move this along in another direction. And I do want to say that it's really important. I'm very sensitive to the chemtrails also, and I've been doing things for about 4 to 5 years, and if I don't take my supplements, I just suffer terribly without my supplements. So it's really important to find out what works for you and what works in your system. But I found that colloidal silver and zeolite and magnesium, along with vitamin C, are just awesome for helping to subvert the effects.
Yeah, you're saying the consistency is important, and it is. Once you find a good program, your body needs this every day. Most people don't realize
it does.
That your body is cellularly replaced. It's something about 98% annually, and the reason our bodies don't replace in the same youthful form as your DNA becomes damaged, the blueprint, if you will, becomes less legible for your body. So there's, the replacement isn't exactly what it was when we were young, but there's that much replacement going on all the time. So the flow of nutrients is absolutely essential.
Exactly. And they say that, in every 7 years, we're actually a whole new person. All of our cells are replaced, generating what the body needs. But
right.
This is a terrible assault on everybody's system. So, and I see so many younger people who, people who are around my daughter's age, like between 28 and 30, who are so sick, and they don't want to believe that it's because of chemtrails. And I call them the lost generation, because they don't care.
All the sugars, all the processed foods tends to make the body more acidic. That's an environment that a lot of bad things happen. It's important to stay alkaline. And
exactly.
This is something that, again, a little bit of apple cider vinegar in a glass of water a couple times a day, avoid the sugars. Yep. We need to give our body every bit of help we can right now to try to stay off this onslaught while we fight the battle at hand. So anyway, that advice is well taken. So thank you. Thank you very much.
That is another great one.
Thank you.
Can I mention one more thing?
You bet.
Yeah. Okay. For many years, I'm 60 now, and I have belonged to different movements, alternative movements, and New Age movement, alternative communities. And these people, as informed as they are, they also don't really want to pay attention on this level. And many of them have told me that I bring down their frequency, or I even bring down the frequency of the world by approaching this in a negative way, which I try not to do. I mean, I try not to make it doom and gloom, but there are just times when you can't paint a rosy face on this. And so basically I've been researching frequency information, and Dr. Len Horowitz, has talked about the miracle frequency of 528. And then there's information out there that by directing this frequency of 528 into, say, very toxic waters, that it will disperse the oil and the toxins in the water. And so I've also been looking at rife frequencies, which are cure-alls for lots of different things, and they even have them for chemtrails. But I'm wondering, I live not far from an Air Force base, and every morning I hear them play reveille, and it comes all the way over to where I'm living. And I'm wondering if there might be a solution or part of the solution to actually direct, a high-powered frequency of these higher frequencies into the atmosphere, and would that have the possibility of doing anything to divert some of these, toxins in the air?
I don't know what means we would have to project on that massive a scale, but I do want to elaborate on the point you made with a lot of people's position that they don't want to think negative thoughts. They don't want to, go down that road, and that's simply another form of denial. That's all it is. You have to face certain realities in life, period. And there's so many people, and even on the quote-unquote left or progressive community or the supposedly enlightened community, they are the hardest to reach of all in many cases. And I know a lot of them, in academia especially. It's hard to add to a cup that's already full, as they say. And that's absolutely what I referred to at the beginning of the show. Denial is a religion, and it is epidemic on all sides of the fence. Absolutely epidemic. And again, I refer to Scott Peck. I encourage people to look at some of Scott Peck's writings. He was very straightforward and very on target. That, again, the hallmark of a healthy mind is an unswavering willingness to examine the truth and not turn away, no matter how bitter that truth is. And that's a healthy mind. So for those who are feeling beat down and beat up from relatives and family and friends who belittle them for trying to tell the truth, stand your ground. Stand your ground confidently, because you are the one that's sane, period. The psychoanalysis study backs that up. You are the one that's sane. So anyway, I salute you for standing your ground with those communities. Your point is well taken.
I keep trying. I do. I try to stay positive, yeah.
They will not be able to stay in denial much longer. The events on the ground will dictate realities that are impossible to hide very soon. So let's stand our ground. Let's keep planting seeds. Thank you. Any more?
Well, exactly.
Absolutely.
Thank you very much.
I had one other question. I don't want to take up too much time, but I was a landscape gardener, and I really can't do that work any longer because I can't count on being outdoors, when the chemtrails are so bad or when the geoengineering is so terrible. And I was wondering, do you know of any legal guidelines? Like, I'm not a litigious person, but I was wondering if it made any sense to try to, take on any kind of a legal defense, because, maybe if...
I hear this a lot, and I hear a lot of people, that think that we should have done certain things by now. I don't have the resources to do that. I do not. It would take, I can barely come up with the research and the communication, but here's my point, and this is the strategy that I've always held to, and I still believe it to be the most effective what we're doing. If we can reach critical mass, then the attorneys, the biologists, scientists, experts from every arena, when they know and can no longer deny, and their families know that we are all being poisoned, the ship is going down, they will enter the battle with us. We won't need to hire them because they'll be fighting for their own lives as well. And that's where critical mass comes into play. You can't fight a battle without an army, and we need to raise our army, and we are doing so now. I'm hearing from people in other arenas, academicians, a couple in the legal arena, environmental attorneys. They are starting to realize that their denial will not save them. And if with the few of us there are, again, we're fighting like the colonists from behind rocks and trees right now, getting off a shot wherever we can, if you will. And that's the most effective way to fight this battle. All of us, from wherever we're at, shooting the flaming arrows, starting the spot fires, to raise our army of awareness, and then legal action. Yes, absolutely. On countless arenas, legal action needs to be instituted. We have to have an army to do that. We have to keep the horse in front of the cart where it belongs. If we can reach critical mass, all those wheels will start to turn. So thank you very much for the input. We're going to try to grab a couple more real quick and fit a few more in, but thank you very much for calling in.
Thank you so much. I appreciate all you do. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Thank you, caller. Great to have you. I want to contribute one more thing, too.
Yes, Russ.
Is this whole philosophy of when you talk negatively or you tell the truth that it's contributing to some kind of negativity or it's adding to bad vibration. I will take it one step further, and I truly believe, I respect what people believe and I respect what they say, but in my research that this philosophy has actually been invented by the people who do attempt to control society to actually keep dissenters quiet. That's where this idea ultimately came from. So what it does is it demonizes people like us who tell the truth. It's a very hard truth to hear. It doesn't make you feel good, but you have to know the truth in order to solve a problem. And so this philosophy of not being able to say something negative, actually comes from those who are trying to keep us from even sharing this information. That's my research anyway. I just wanted to share that perspective.
Makes perfect sense, Russ. I mean, makes perfect sense. I completely agree. And, to hide in a hole and think happy thoughts does not get the job done. If you're, I'll use the example again. If your child was drowning somewhere, and you needed to face that truth or dive in the water and try to go save them. If you sit on the shore and think happy thoughts, it's not going to get the job done. It's not going to save your child. Same is true now. I mean, we absolutely have to engage head on, and that's the sign of a healthy and solid mindset. So anyway, fully agree with you.
Absolutely. Hey, caller, with your number that ends in 81, who are we speaking with?
Hi, my name is Joan. I'm from St. Paul, Minnesota.
Good to have you.
Hi. One thing I wanted to ask is, Russ, sometime not about a month or two ago, he mentioned on the show something about how they build certain people up in the media, progressives up, so that people trust them, and then once they have their trust, then they don't allow that person, to speak the truth anymore. I think that should be said at the beginning of every show because it's true. It was true with Amy Goodman. It was true with Jesse Ventura. It's true with a lot of the people Bill Moyers, you really trust because they're these honest, progressive people. And then once they go so far, the people who are really in power stop them.
Thank you for bringing that up, John. Your point is so incredibly valid. And I've met Amy Goodman twice. Mm-hmm. And I've shared this before in the show. I once supported her show. I think I spent a total of about $15,000 of my own money airing her show, Democracy Now!, at my own expense in Northern California. And when she began to not cover the most essential issues, as you stated, and after meeting her twice and really being quite taken back at her abrasive nature in person, and I know exactly what you stated to be the case with Amy Goodman, that she's receiving money from the Ford Foundation, and she cannot talk about 9/11. She cannot talk about climate engineering, and her attitude is this. This is her attitude. I know this face to face. Well, I am at least able, by biting my lip, I at least am able to get some of the truth out. That doesn't get it. That's like saying my boat is almost watertight. It almost doesn't have a hole in the bottom. If it's got a hole in the bottom, it's not going to float. And if your followers think if it was true that you would tell them and you're not telling them, you're doing more harm than good. I completely agree with you. And Tom Hartman's another one. Who pretends to the same category as you mentioned. So your point is extremely valid. And these people
Russ
who
made
follow
that
them, point
in one time, one of the shows. I think it should be like, you have a theme song. I think this should be the theme opening, or maybe you can even create a song. That's.
Well, I know a clinical psychologist who became a fan of Amy Goodman when I was airing her shows, and he later stated to me, when I tried to inform him of what she was now, he said, "I will never think bad of Amy Goodman. I don't care what anybody says." Mm-hmm. What is that? That's a religion. Amy Goodman is his idol, and he thinks of it in a religious manner. And the facts no longer matter and to him. And this is a clinical psychologist, so your point is very well taken. Mm-hmm. But from all sides of the fence, whether it's the far right, who thinks there's nothing wrong with the environment, nothing wrong with the climate, even though we're in the sixth great mass extinction, the climate's disintegrating, or the other side of the fence, who you have hundreds of thousands of people gathering for 350.org, talking about the state of the climate, and having a completely illegitimate discussion because they're not even mentioning climate engineering, which should be the very first thing mentioned when any discussion of the climate happens. So on all sides of the fence, radical denial. But again, the unraveling is so rapid right now, I don't think they can hide it for much longer, and we'll see a lot of people forced out of their holes then.
Joan,
Well, I actually protested Amy Goodman here in Minneapolis several times. That was on a Cuba issue where she wasn't speaking about certain things that were happening at the time. And one time she came out she would speak at this church, and then she would come out between the different masses. And she came out, and she's over there. When I walked over to her to hand her a flyer of what I was handing out, she just turned her back on me. And here she was in there talking about the right to speech.
Yeah, that's Amy Goodman. That's the Amy Goodman I've met as well. And you know, this is, again, these people are in this for reasons other than the cause itself. It's typically their own narcissism in many cases. So let's keep trying to expose her. And thank you for bringing up the point. Extremely valid. Thanks, Joan.
Okay, I have another question. Do you know, are you going to be on Global Research News Hour?
I'm not scheduled for anything there that I know of. I don't have anything on my calendar that I have a lot of other shows.
I sent you a copy of the information, I think, that I sent to...
yes, I do remember. Yes. Okay. No, I don't.
I know he was going to be doing some more research, but he has had some good people on there.
Have not heard from them, but there's quite a few big shows coming up on my calendar, and people that are non-choir that are looking at this issue. I did not get a response back from NPR who tried to reach us, Russ and I, regarding this issue, and I think that they realize it's not going to be marginalized so easy with some of us, and so they've backed off. But again, the climate right now is disintegrating, and I don't think they can hide this much longer. So let's all keep sounding the alarm. And thanks for everything you're doing, and we'll keep doing our best from this end.
Okay.
Thank you.
Have a good day.
Yeah, Joan. Thank you.
Can I stay on the phone? I think I had to listen to your program last week to get the phone number to call in. Is there any way people could listen to this live?
Russ can answer that.
Yeah, absolutely. You can call in and listen on this number. Just keep your phone nice and quiet, and you can listen in by Skype. Yes.
Okay. Now, if I stay on the phone now, is that okay?
Yep, you sure can. No problem.
Okay.
And Joan,
okay.
while we have you with us, I want to just thank you for bringing that up about Jesse Ventura, about those other people who have. I don't like to normally pick on people, but I do know years ago I worked for a small political party, and that's where my education into the real world began. This was an incredible group of people. Then my eyes opened in the 2 years I was volunteering with them, and it just made me understand that this is one of the methods that they use. And I just want to say...
You stated it so well when you stated you were short, but you're to the point. I thought you should say that at the beginning of every single show you have.
Well, I appreciate that. And, during that time, I learned about social counterbalances, controlled opposition, controlled regulation, and what this is, just so people who are new, because we have a record number of callers and a record number of listeners today. Our audience is growing and growing, which makes me very happy. What happens is that the opposition, those people who are supporting the aerosol spraying for whatever reason, and we know there are a lot of different reasons, but those who are doing this will have people in the public eye that will pretend to be the opposition. They will pretend to be one of us who are saying, no, this is bad, it's killing everything. And they may not even specifically speak to this issue. They may talk about vaccines, they may talk about smart meters or fracking or any of the other issues that go along with being aware of what's going on with the destruction and the harmful policies that are being proposed and pushed by our governments and industry. And they will seem to be on our side. And then when they talk about this issue, this will be the golden goose, because this issue, I believe, is bigger than anything. They will come out and they'll say, well, it's really not happening. There's no real solid evidence. But they do this after they have gained a huge following. And we've seen this happen with a couple people now who are in the public eye, who everybody knows their name, and they had a huge following, and then they did a show on geoengineering, and they didn't do any scientific analysis. They didn't really look into it. They had one of the people, their only guest was somebody on the other side, at least in one of the cases, and they obviously were just doing a smear piece just to make it look like this isn't really happening. And that is one of the tactics of disinformation, and I'm bringing this up again, and thank you for bringing it up, Joan, because people need to understand this is one of the things they do to fool.
It's part of their strategy, yeah.
It is part of the strategy, yes.
Points well taken. Well taken. We'll keep that in mind. Thanks, Russ. Thank you very much, Joan, for bringing that up, and we'll keep that in mind. Try to keep that word out.
Yeah, Joan.
Okay.
Thank you so much, Joan. Pleasure. Them. I'm so glad you brought that up.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, we have Kim with us. Kim, I see you called in on Skype. Are you there with us right now?
Hello.
Hi, how are you?
Good. Good afternoon, everybody.
What you got going? How you doing this afternoon? What's on your mind?
I'm just trying to do as many pre-planning things as I can because there's going to be a global march on April 25th. I want to try to get little small activities going before we actually hit that day. Just if anybody wants to know, I just put a link in there. It's in brown writing. That's the actual event area for the global march against chemtrails and geoengineering. They also have a website that you can go to. It's abbreviated gmacag.com, and that will actually give you a listing for everything around the nation. There's an interactive map over there also. You can actually, instead of looking down through the list for your country, your state, or whatever, you can just look at the map, and if there's anything near you, you can hook in. Just pick the little balloon that's on there. I wanted to suggest to people you can create your own event, even if it just starts out with you and a few friends. We do have a few months to go, so it's really easy. You just create an event by going into Facebook, put the good information in there. If you want to get a banner or something that represents what your cause is, you can either put something up that is maybe a protest that you've already been to, or you could use one of the Global Marches banners that they have in their album. I suggest people start trying to think of this stuff ahead of time because I think the more you plan for it, the more successful it's going to be.
Encourage people involved with this organization for this march or any other. As much as possible, it's imperative to use the science terms because the first thing media does, we've seen this again and again and again, is they marginalize the non-science terms. So the more people have this on their data, their signage, stick to the science terms. That's the term that can't be marginalized. And anybody who's watched any mainstream coverage of this issue, the term they want to use and that they want us to use is chemtrails. That's the term that the media has focused on marginalizing. Congress is focused on marginalizing. The official narrative from NASA marginalizes. They all say this doesn't exist. They can't say that about SRM. They can't say that about geoengineering, climate engineering. There's so many good science terms, and I encourage people to use those terms. And also one other program that's going right now is SkyderAlert.com. That's George Barnes' site, his film called Look Up. There's a program to put that film in theaters. Anybody, anywhere can join this program and with very few steps and very simply can get that film put in a theater in their area. So that's one other method people might use to gain momentum to also then have more participating in these protests coming up. So, both programs can work. And thanks for bringing that up, Kim. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. I absolutely agree that we do need to start using a little bit more credible terms because, like you said, a lot of people are a little bit eerie with the term chemtrails, but a lot of the groups that I participate in, they still keep that word in there in some areas because it gets people who are searching chemtrails, it gets them in, and then of course we get a chance to educate people on, that's only one small aspect of geoengineering. There's so much that involves climate modification. It's amazing.
That term itself, again, the only reference to that term is Dennis Kucinich. In one of his legislation, he just grabbed the term because everybody else used it, and one manual that I do not feel was valid. So when if anybody wants to see just how much the mainstream media wants us to use the chemtrails term, Google Dane Wigington, David Pakman. Look at that 15-minute interview, David Pakman's mainstream media hitman, and watch that 15-minute video and see how absolutely tenaciously he insisted on using the term and insisted I use the term. It is very, very telling to watch that video. So anyway, the more we stand on the science terms, the less we will be marginalized. But thanks for bringing that up, Kim. We're going to try to grab a couple more callers if we can, and thanks for all you're doing to raise awareness. Greatly appreciate it.
You're welcome. I'll talk to you later. Bye.
Thank you.
Hi, Kim. Thank you for being with us, and thank you for all that you do. I know that you are working hard are
Yes.
working really, really hard, and I think about that all the time, and I'm very grateful. Caller.
Thank you, Kim.
Thank you, Kim. Yeah, caller with your number that ends in 03. Who are we speaking with? Caller with your phone number, last two digits are 03. Are you with us?
Yeah. This is Allie Larkin in Des Moines, Washington, and I want to go back to Tom Hartman and Mike Papantonio and all of them. I find it interesting because I am an elected official. I may just be a water commissioner, but I have my 1, 2, 3 that none of them, they have all dismissed me. All of my other elected officials have dismissed me. None of them will deal with fluoride in the water, the electromagnetic radiation microwave frequencies, or the chemtrails, the geoengineering. And
Go ahead.
Tom Hartman even went after me on his Big Picture TV show because I posted on his Facebook about Koch brothers and when were they going to be held accountable for destroying humanity and the environment. And he got all over me saying that was hyperbole and name-calling and whatever. And then he goes on to talk about how the environment and humanity are being destroyed.
Hartman is a paradox, just like Amy Goodman, just like the rest. You cannot get in the position they are in with media without agreeing to toe the line for the power structure, to do what you're told. And even though RT-TV, for example, where Hartman does a lot of his shows, RT has put out some good data on many things, much better than our mainstream media, but increasingly they are getting further and further off course. And when we know, for example, I've had a number of email exchanges with Abby Martin, who's on RT, and on the climate engineering issue, they will never touch this because they're told they can't. So even though these people all have this arrogant sort of attitude, and they all do, they are simply gatekeepers. That's what they are, and that's what they're paid to do, and we can expect nothing but that from them. So it's up to us to expose them. That's one reason for the disinformation directory site. There's Rebel Siren and Doug Diamond and others involved with that site. That's the purpose of that site, to expose people like that, put their sort of statements or whatever they've done to really try to hide the truth, to publicly expose that and publicly expose their email so the public can rattle their cages, and so that we can let them know that we know they're lying. And to expose these people, they don't like it. They absolutely don't like it. And so the more we try to expose them, and anybody can do this in their own area by putting their email out to others and putting out what they've stated that's false and hiding the truth, and the more we shine the light on these people, the less comfortable they are, the more fracturing it causes. So your point's well taken.
Thank you.
Chris, thank you very much for calling in. Russ?
Thanks. That was very interesting to have someone who is an elected official.
Yes, yeah, and we need people like that with courage to stand their ground. Thank you for doing that, and please don't back off. Please don't back off. And again, for all those that have been standing ground or getting a lot of resistance, I think in a very short time that events unfolding on the ground are going to make it impossible to hide what's happening. So not that this is good, not that the climate unraveling is good, it's certainly not. But vindication is coming as far as the reality that many have denied. They'll be forced to face it soon. Russ, do we have anybody else on?
Yeah, we sure do. Please don't stop the pressure. Keep putting the pressure on, and we need more people. Bumper stickers, signs in your yard, handing out flyers to people. Please do it. We need your help. Caller with your number that ends in 62. Who are we speaking with?
Hey guys, it's Ty from East Texas.
Hey Ty. How are you? What's on your mind, buddy?
I just wanted to add a comment on the using their proper terms. SAI, stratospheric aerosol injection, is the term that I use, which, if I'm not mistaken, is the proper science term. When I talk to people about, what's going on, a lot of times people are like, well, I know other people that are into that, quote unquote. Well, it would be similar to like if somebody broke into my house, and then I would be into house burglary. I mean, how could it be something that we could be into when it's something that's really happening, something we've got to accept, and try to take steps towards that. Where I'm at,
SAI is a great, it's certainly one of the science terms. And for a general term, a general first-time introduction term, the climate engineering term is pretty straightforward. And this is one that, I think it's a good primary lead-in term. And the geoengineering term, although it is a science term, and we use the term, I've used it for my website, because when people Google search, all the science community uses that particular term. So it's important that we used it, but that term by design also is deceptive. When people who are unfamiliar with the subject, and they hear that, it sounds earthy. It sounds like some sort of a engineering something that has to do with something terrestrial. And, that's by design. They don't make things clear. They don't try to have clear science terms for that reason. But, again, climate engineering, SAI, SRM, SAG, those are all good terms. But for a simple one straightforward term, I think climate engineering is a good intro for people because they can understand that term straightforward.
Well, and one of the things that kind of gets me in a rut when I'm telling people about this is, of course, what's the motive? Where we live at, they're not going to be able to hide it very much longer because this past week, the start of January, it's probably been every week. It seems like it's getting more and more and more obvious, more and more blatant, and it's getting to the point where it's easy to show people, especially when they're doing it right above their head. It's easy to talk to people about it and point it out to people, and I've pointed out to a lot of people that have really accepted it now after they can see it day in and day out when they would otherwise, not ever noticed it. My biggest problem is motive. I guess that the biggest catalyst is because of climate change. That is the number one threat to national security. Dane and Russ, what's your take on this, and what's your approach?
I would say power and control. Russ, you can chime in too, but simplest, most comprehensible, straightforward answer to that, power and control. Why does the military-industrial complex do anything? Power and control. So it relates to a lot of other things within that category, but that's a category most people can understand. Russ, your take on that?
Yeah, I completely agree. All of this comes to power and control, whether it's weather derivatives, whether it's population control, whether it's increasing the outbreaks of illness and viruses and sickness, and other things as well. All of these things come down to power and control. That is the ultimate end game.
Yes, the general category is most comprehensible to people because, in a lot of arenas, people addressing this issue are going so far into the rabbit hole that the average citizen has no idea what they're talking about, no way to process the information, so they just walk away. So the simple, most straightforward terms, climate engineering, why? Power and control. That's simple, and given data, it's best to pass on data and walk on. That way it sticks, because otherwise the defenses start going up. They don't remember what you're saying, and the kind of the deer in the headlights look comes on. And so anyway, pass on credible data. But your points are well taken, Ty, and thanks. I know you're doing a lot down your way, and please keep it up.
I just want to really quick. Do you guys think a formal disclosure is imminent? Because from where we're at, I don't think they're going to be able to hide it much longer. It's just so obvious, so obviously blatant that they're doing daily exercises. Do you think that they're preparing for a formal disclosure and the public's reaction? And if so, how do you think they're going to propose it? And what do you think the nationwide reaction is going to be?
That's a good question, but I think that when they cannot hide this issue any longer, so much more comes out on the table with it. I think at that point it would be logical to expect some major event, be it a false flag, the start of global conflict. At the point in time that they cannot hide this issue, I would argue our paradigm will turn upside down. And they are trying desperately to hide this issue as long as they can, with the Weather Channel theater and all the other sources of media that try to paint headlines and statements that completely are targeted at hiding climate engineering. The planet's entering a 30-year ice age. it's cooling, and you see this sort of attempt to hide the tracks of the climate engineering. Just like in the Gulf of Mexico, the oil's not as bad. We don't see as much. Well, while they were sinking the oil with the use of the chemical correctant, their goal was to hide the problem, to hide the damage done. Same is true with climate engineering. So, again, once the population knows that they have been a part of this incredibly lethal experiment, I would argue our paradigm will turn upside down at that moment. From that moment on, nothing will be the same ever again. But we need to reach that moment as soon as possible before the power structure can finish preparations so that their foundation fractures. It's fracturing right now, I believe, and the sooner we reach the moment of critical awareness, the better off we'll be. So we all need to push in that direction, Ty. Great questions. Thanks for your call. We're going to try to grab one more. Russ?
Thank you, Ty. Appreciate the call. Yeah, couldn't have said it better.
Great question.
Yeah, we really do have a paradigm shift. I couldn't agree with you more, Dane. Call it with your number that ends in by paradigm shift. I just want to clarify that this is an attempt to distract the public from really finding out the details of what's going on and keep the focus on something else and keep the truth from getting out. Caller with your number that ends in 10. Who are we speaking with?
Hey guys, Dan Cherry in Rochester. How are you today? Hey guys.
Hi Dan.
Hey,
good to talk to you, Dan.
Yeah, you too. Thanks. In deference to you, Russ, I smelled metal pretty bad in the air last week when they started to nucleate the Northeast, and it got quite cold, of course, down below
what's
zero.
Interesting, Dan, is more and more people I find are smelling and tasting it. As you become more toxic, as you become more induced with metal in your body, it seems like people become more able to actually sense it, and there are some biological reasons for that. But that is something that can work in our favor. Go ahead, Dan.
Yeah, no doubt. And I noticed the coincidence of an awful lot of people shortly after getting exceptionally sick. Guys I work with, I can't believe how sick they are. They still go to work and they're making everybody else sick. It's a pretty horrifying situation. But anyway, I'll cut this short. Dane, and all of you for that matter, but I was hoping to maybe get Dane's input on this. The other night, a few nights ago, I came home from work. It was 0 degrees with a wind chill between 20 and 30 below zero. And I got home, and when I got out of my truck, now understand I have a cab on the back, which is essentially probably colder than 0 degrees by the time I got home. But it appeared that it was snowing very lightly, but it wasn't snow. It was a mist, almost like a fog where just little tiny droplets were falling. And I looked at it, and I felt the stuff hitting my face, and it didn't feel like snow. It felt like a liquid, and I would touch it, and it felt liquid. So I went to the back of my truck, and I wiped my truck, and it was liquid. It wasn't snowflakes. So here we are 0 degrees, 20 below zero wind chill, and this stuff is liquid by the time it's hitting my truck. So I had a question about that. Have you heard of that type of thing? Is that an offshoot of the nucleation, the chemicals? Were those chemicals coming down, do you think? And I'll leave it at that, so maybe you can get another call. Thanks, guys.
At this point, we can't know what they're putting in the mix. It appears they're throwing everything they can at this. And also one thing that's important to remember, Dan, that cold layer can be extremely shallow. So you can have situations where precipitation is coming down through much warmer air and not nucleating when it hits that cold layer soon enough, or there may be other chemicals that we're yet unaware of. And on that note, I do believe now the lab we have relied on is completely compromised. So I do not trust the lab test we have from that lab, which we've relied on any longer. The former owner died a little bit untimely death. I'm not insinuating anything. I don't know what happened, but he died at a relatively young age. There's a new owner who was told people who are trying to test that this is all nonsense, they shouldn't waste their time, very much resistant to this whole issue. So, I don't know what we do to rely on lab tests anymore, but things are happening around the globe. We have, in Seattle, people should keep an eye on this. We have yet one more location where you have the very strong odor of fog coming in, which could be methane release, hydrogen sulfide, a lot of things happening. We all need to keep our eyes on the horizon. Russ?
Thank you for joining us this afternoon. This has been GeoEngineering Watch Radio. We're here every Saturday at 12 noon Pacific Time, 3 p.m. Eastern Time at ucy.tv/GW. Join us next Saturday at 12 noon Pacific, 3 p.m. Eastern. Have a good week. Bye-bye.